Alrighty, timer's running. So, today's task is to write a Rakefile, or at least to begin writing a Rakefile. Let's see here. So what I need to do is I need to write a Rakefile for publishing sections of a book to a WordPress site. And a book section comes in the form of an org mode file, like this one. Let's see if we can open this up. There we go. Because I write my stuff in org mode. So there are a few things that are going to happen. We're going to have to transform this into a format that WordPress is happy with. And I've decided to go with Markdown. I have Markdown enabled on my little development site. And I'm experimenting with using Markdown as the interchange format instead of using HTML. Still not sure whether I want to stick with that, but we'll see. I've already got some Markdown files in here because I've been fiddling with this process earlier, but I'm going to get rid of those because I need to make sure that I can automate this whole process. So, I've been taking notes. As I mentioned in a previous video, I like to, if I'm planning on automating anything, I try to make a habit of just going through the whole process in a very manual way first and recording every part of that process, just figuring out what has to be automated. Because a lot of times trying to automate something while also learning what exactly you need to automate really turns out to be mixing two different concerns, and they get in each other's way. So I have all my notes here, and this is an executable notepad in org mode. I've got various commands, and I've got the results of the commands. There are a couple of ways to go about writing a Rakefile like the one I'm about to do, and one of them is obviously to just sort of go through and automate the process exactly as I did it manually from beginning to end. But the thing about Rakefiles, Rake doesn't really look at the world that way. Rake looks at the world in reverse and thinks about the world in terms of what is the goal we want to get to. So what is the goal we want to get to? Here, let's make a Rakefile in here. I think I've forgotten a, oh wait a second. Nope. I'm trying to remember a keyboard shortcut. I'm not succeeding. Where's that button? I'm bad at keyboard shortcuts. All right. New thingamy. All right. So what do we want to get to? What is the default? Well, I mean, what we're doing here is we're deploying a site. We're deploying some content to a site anyway. Deploy, publish. Publish might be a better word. Publish? Yeah, let's call it publish. All right, so the default depends on publish. Well, looks like I need to write a task called publish. Well, what does publish mean? Publish isn't really a task so much as it is a state of being. Published is a state of being. How do we get to published? How do we define published? Well, I would say we have some input files, and we have and we know that we want them to show up as pages on a website, specifically pages on a WordPress site. So we might say that published really depends on I don't like that blue color. I'm going to have to customize that. I don't think that's part of the theme. Anyway, we might say that publish depends on what's defined as having a certain set of files published to the site. Having a certain set of pages that are up to date based on their source files. Let's just get a skeleton in place. So I'm not going to try to generalize this yet. I'm not going to try to say, let's generalize this to all of the pages. Let's just get just one page, which means that we need in Rake parlance, we need a task which represents a page being published. I like to think of it more in terms of targets. Targets is a term that Make uses. So let's say that that's represented by a target or a task called pages, colon, well, what's that one of those concrete pages called? Or what's one of those files called? Automate a process. So this is like the simplest recipe that I want to publish. So we'll say pages, a process. Something like that. All right. So what does that mean? Well, here's something I haven't mentioned yet. I want all these to be subpages of a super page, like a top level page. So actually, what I want this to be is something like pages. Something like that. So something like that. So if I run this now, yeah, we see don't know how to build task pages / book. So far, so good. So we need a way to create this pages / book page. Oh, not slash. Hold on. All right, now here's the thing. We could just create tasks in WordPress that would create pages. The problem with that is that there's no connection there's no lasting connection to the page that it creates. It doesn't have if you create a task that just uses some HTTP requests to publish a page, there's no way then for that task to say, hey, am I accomplished or not? We don't want that. We want something a little bit better. We want something that can actually check to see if the page exists and whether it's up to date. Because that's sort of what Rake is all about. It's what makes Rake great. So we need a special kind of task. We need a task that can handle publishing WordPress pages and checking to see if they exist. We're going to keep going backwards, though. We're going to say, okay, let's pretend that task exists. What do we call it? WP let's stick this in a namespace. That should blow up nicely. Undefined method WP page. Good. Alright, now we need to go up to the top because we need to define a method which will later be used. Alright, so that exists. And we're going to define it to take our arbitrary arguments in a block, and we're going to do, I'm going to rip off some stuff for myself here. Where was it? There we go. Okay, define task, that's what I'm looking for. All right, so we'll say WP page.define task. Next, let's try to run this. Uninitialized constant WP page. Good. Progress. Alright, so I'm going to do something that I've done a little bit in the past. So I actually kind of know what I'm doing here, sort of. Rack task? Not rack, rake. How do I always do that? Yes? No? Probably? Rake task, yes. Okay. And all right, let's rip this one off first. Whoa. Yeah, whatever. Just get rid of those. And let's rip this one off. Oh, wait a second. I think the only thing that needs to be public here is needed. So post exists isn't quite right. I'll make this page exists. I just do. And all right. That gets us far enough to get a different error. Undefined method page exists, funnily enough. How do we find out if the page exists? Well, there's a really easy way to do that. Just need to hit the page and see if it exists. How do I want to do this? Tell you what, I can never remember my net HTTP. I really just want to do a head request here. All right, so make a URI and then net HTTP start. Okay. Remember, we're just doing the simplest thing that'll work here, so we're not going to try to abstract anything. We're going to hard code URLs. Everything that needs to be generalized can be generalized later. All right. That. I probably need to require this, don't I? All right, URL. URL equals URL. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. URI. Weird. Hard code all of the things. All right, maybe we won't hard code that part. So this has a name. This task has a name because it's a rake task, and rake tasks have names, so it does know its own name. So we'll insert that there. Net HTTP start URI dot host URI dot port, and then how do I set up a head request? And yes, there are a zillion other easier HTTP libraries I could be using right now. I just don't feel like adding any dependencies right yet. For that reason, I'm doing this way. All right. Except we don't want get, we want head. Oops. Oops. All right, so there's our response. And And basically, we just want to know whether it's a successful response. Which, I forget, do response objects have a success thingy on them? HTTP response. Got code. Can you ask it if it's successful? That's my question. I guess not. All right, you know what? Let's just see how far this gets. And then dump the response. Actually, let's pretty print the response. Which means we're going to need to require PP. I did mean URI. Silly me. What did I mess up this time? Oh, right. I really like calling this HTTP. I'm gonna call it session. I like it better. Wow, 25 minutes over already?